Hello everybody, I'm Kestrel1, and today I have for you a guide on composing fire teams in Infinity the Game. Specifically, we're going to look at who can join certain fire teams and what legal combinations you can actually form. To start with some basics, there are 5 types of fire teams in Infinity. There's Core, Harris, Duo, Inomotarkos, and Triad. Today we're just going to focus on Core, Harris, and Duo because those are the common types that basically every sectorial army can actually field. That's an important point too. Vanilla armies, such as just basic Pano, Yuching, Ariadne, etc., cannot form fire teams at all. Does not matter what the unit entries say. If you're playing a vanilla army or non-sectorial army, you cannot make fire teams. Only sectorial armies can create fire teams. With that in mind, let's look at a particular sectorial. Today we're going to look at Varuna Immediate Reaction Division. And the first thing we should ask whenever we get into a new sectorial is who can actually be part of fire teams in this sectorial. To do that, we have to look at the sectorial army chart. So here's the one for Varuna Immediate Reaction Division. You can find these on Corvus Belli's website. I'll provide a link in the description below. And what we're looking for in this chart is basically an entry in the fire team column. Anybody that has an entry in the fire team column can be part of a fire team in Varuna Immediate Reaction Division. Anything that has a dash next to it cannot. So Fusiliers, Kamau, Orcs, Squallows, Patsy by Pandora, Quinn, Clippers, and Machinists can be part of a fire team in Varuna Immediate Reaction Division, whereas something like an Echo Bravo or Cutters cannot because they have a dash next to their unit entry. As to what types of fire teams a trooper can be part of, that's listed in the fire team column. So there's Core, Harris, Duo, and Special. Core, Harris, and Duo are pretty self-explanatory, but Special has to be explained by an accompanying chart, which lists the special fire teams for that particular sectorial. All special entries fall into one of the following categories. Either Wild Card, one of the most common, basically says that trooper can be part of any fire team of that sectorial army. Secondly, there are what I call can be part of entries, which basically are specific combinations that are legal. In Varuna, for example, Orcs, up to 2 Orcs can be part of the fire team Core of Fusiliers. Lastly, there are entries that I would call counts as. Fusilier Indigo by Pandora, for instance, it counts as a Fusilier for fire team composition. And we'll see what the difference between that and can be part of is in just a moment. So now that we know who can be part of a fire team in Varuna, let's go through some examples. Every fire team has to start with what I'm going to call an origin trooper. This isn't a term you'll find in the rules, but I find it helps me to remember what type of fire team I'm building as well as who is a legal member. So let's start with an example. Let's make an Orc fire team. And in Varuna, Orcs can have a Core, Harris, or Duo fire team. Let's start with a Duo. So, who can join this Orc in this Duo? Well, by default, anybody from the same unit entry as that Orc, in this case Orc Troopers, can be part of this Duo. So we get an Orc to this fire team right here. We can also add anybody whose special entry says they specifically can be part of either an Orc fire team or any fire team in this army, which basically means wild cards in Varuna. So we could have this Orc accompanied by a Kamau, we could have it accompanied by Richard Quinn, etc., etc. But as an example, we could not have it accompanied by a Squallow. Despite both these troopers having the Duo entry, you must either be part of the same unit or have special permission to join a fire team in order to combine with a different type of trooper. So this is not a legal combination in Varuna. So beyond our origin trooper, we can fill out the fire team however we want. Let's switch over to a Core here real quick. And as we said before, this Orc can be joined by any number of Orcs as well as any number of special entries, so wild cards like these. Despite there being more non-Orcs than Orcs in this fire team, this is an Orc fire team because our origin trooper is an Orc. And this is a legal Orc fire team, Orc Core. Importantly though, throughout this process, we cannot swap our origin trooper with a different trooper unless we want to change the type of fire team we're building. So we cannot swap this Orc out for a Kamau, because then this is a Kamau fire team with a different set of eligible members, which, for example, this Orc is not a legal member of. And we can't swap it out with any of our wild cards. For example, despite being a Orc Trooper in her name, Patsy Garnett's only entry on the Fireteam chart is special, so she cannot be the Origin Trooper for a core. Our Origin Trooper has to have either the Core Harris or Duo skill in order to act as the Origin Trooper. So let's go ahead and change our Origin Trooper. This time we'll pick a Fusilier. Fusiliers can only be in core Fireteams in Varuna, and they have a special entry that lets us add up to 2 Orc troops to the Fireteam. And again, beyond that, we can fill in the team however we want. We can have a Fusilier. We could add another wild card in there. And that is a legal core Fireteam. This is a Fusilier core with 2 Fusiliers, 2 Orcs, and a Kamau. Now, the big difference between the wild card special and the counts as special is thus. We can have Richard Quinn be part of this Fusilier Fireteam, but he cannot act as the Origin Trooper for this Fireteam because his only entry in the Fireteam chart is special. He does not have the core ability, and he's not a Fusilier, even though it's in his name. He can't be the Origin Trooper for this Fireteam. However, Indigo by Pandra counts as a Fusilier, and that specifically allows her to act as an Origin Trooper in a Fusilier Fireteam. She is effectively the same unit entry as a Fusilier when it comes to Fireteam composition. So this is a legal Fusilier core. Lastly, let's change it up and illustrate another important example. So Kamau. Kamau can form core Harris teams in Varuna, and despite being wild cards, they also have the core and Harris entries in their unit entry, so they can act as Origin Troopers. So we can make a Kamau Harris, and we can populate that with more Kamau. We can also change it to, we can also include a Machinist, because Machinists have special permission to be part of any Fireteam core or Harris of Kamau. Now, importantly, the Origin Trooper has to be a Kamau for this to be legal. We can't, for example, have an Orc Harris here with a Kamau and a Machinist, because the Machinist can only join teams that have a Kamau as their Origin Trooper. Only Kamau Fireteams. They can't be part of any team that has a Kamau in it. It has to be the Origin Trooper for it to count. So now that we understand who can actually be in a Fireteam, let's go over a couple of important points. Firstly, the composition of a Fireteam and its legality is only checked when forming the Fireteam. So if we have this Orc Harris of 1 Orc and 2 Wildcard Troopers, if this Orc is removed from the Fireteam during the course of the game, either as a casualty or because it fails one of the other cancellation conditions, these 2 will remain part of the Fireteam unless you fall afoul of one of the other cancellation conditions, as I said. The legality of a Fireteam only matters when actually forming the Fireteam. Once it's formed, it won't break unless you run into one of the Fireteam cancellation clauses, such as the Fireteam leader becoming unconscious or removed, or the team breaking coherency. In addition, the Origin Trooper need not be the Fireteam leader. It doesn't matter what your Origin Trooper is. It's basically just a way to remember what type of Fireteam you're building and who can be a part of it. During the course of the game, any member of the Fireteam can be the Fireteam leader. It doesn't matter. You don't have to start with the Origin Trooper. You don't have to start with anybody. You could start with whichever member you want as the core leader and change it to whatever you want during the course of the game, as the Fireteam leader rules describe. Lastly, and most importantly, while the information in the Army app is generally correct, these sectorial charts are what determines who can be part of a Fireteam in Infinity. Because there's a lot of unit entries that are shared between sectorials, as well as just some leftover data from what I assume was testing, you need to check the Fireteam chart or the sectorial army chart in order to determine who is a legal combination in your sectorial. It's not enough for a unit to just have the unit entry. For example, in Varuna, Patsy Garnett has the Fireteam Harris and Fireteam Duo skills, but she cannot act as an Origin Trooper because those skills are not reflected in the Fireteam chart for Varuna. So you just need to double check before you go to form a Fireteam that the one you're trying to make is actually legal according to the sectorial chart, not what's in Army. So I hope this guide helps you with your understanding of forming Fireteams in Infinity. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. Otherwise, I've been Kestrel1, and good luck out there on the battlefield.